So people are very excited about the SQL Analytics endpoint and Lakehouse, and people are now, I believe, building a lot more things inside the Power BI ecosystem. One thing that I have found or discovered as I've been working on the system is the SQL Analytics endpoint does not refresh as fast as the data you put into the Lakehouse. So let me describe. If you have a notebook and your notebook is writing new tables or updating existing tables in your Lakehouse, those tables are getting a new definition JSON file. There's a file that describes the Parquet tables, the Delta tables, and then that file can be read by other tools. So desktop or SQL Analytics endpoint, those read those definition files to go find the latest version of a table. So over time, I'm writing data to a table version 1, version 2, version 3. What happens is there's a slight delay. I don't know what the delay is. I've seen it range anywhere between 5 minutes to like an hour, depending on the queue of how busy things are, maybe in Fabric. But the tables created from the Lakehouse are versioned higher than what the SQL Analytics endpoint observes from the table. I don't know what's going on there, but apparently there's a hack that you can run a SQL Analytic refresh or a resync of the SQL table looking at the data table. So I believe there's an API eventually coming that might help us out with this, or we need an API to help us out with this. But for now, just be aware if you're writing data into the Lakehouse and you're expecting like a very fast turnaround time from the table's been written and the SQL Analytics endpoint is immediately able to read that data, there is a bit of a lag between the version of the Delta table and the version that the SQL Analytics endpoint is reading. So just be aware of that.
Curious, is that affecting is it a cache or is it also affecting like Direct Lake? Like if I were to pull data into a Power BI model?
Everything.
Everything.
The SQL. So my understanding is, and what I've been doing some testing around is, when the SQL Analytics endpoint is trying to talk to the Delta table, there's a stored definition of what version that table is on. The SQL Analytics endpoint is not updating as fast as the actual Delta table is updating. So there's a little bit of a lag or lead time. What I have found to work around this was, if you're going to read data from the Lakehouse and you need it to be like a fast, like I'm going to write the table and then I'm going to immediately read the table again, do it inside a notebook, because notebooks obey that time frame and will immediately read the most recent version of that data with no lag or no lead time. So just FYI about that, I think this solution is going to be fixed. I'm trying to put my finger on, someone had a hack. There's like you can run a SQL Analytics command using like a command to actually like figure out how to make it refresh.